So statistics are a really important part of the world that we live in today. Statistics. Teachers use statistics all the time. We look at test scores to decide what we should be doing differently. Coaches look at statistics from a game to make decisions about what they're going to do in the next game, or to make decisions about players. Businesses use statistics to make decisions about their products. Mean, median, mode, and range are four that we're going to look at. They're also called measures of central tendency. You will be recording these different measures of central tendency on your handout. So the mean is also called the average. That's when you add all of the data up and then you divide by the number of data that you had. And then we have median. If you put all of your data in order, you just find the middle number. Sometimes there's two in the middle, so you have to find the middle of them, which is like the average of those two. We also have mode. Mode's the one that shows up the most often. And last is range, and range is the difference between the largest and the smallest. Make sure you get these recorded on your handout. There's also this very handy poem that helps us remember the difference between these four. So hey diddle diddle, the median's in the middle. You add then divide for the mean. The mode is the one that you see the most, and range is the difference between. So median, it even kind of looks like and kind of sounds like the word middle. Like median is right in the middle between small and large if you're buying a shirt. The mean one, you add, this is the most work. You have to add all the numbers up and then divide by how many numbers you had. Mode starts with MO, and so does the word most. Now it's the one that you see the most. It occurs the most often. And range is the range of possibilities. It's the difference between the largest number and the smallest number. Okay, so I'll do this one and really follow along. The mean is the one where you add all of them you see and then divide by how many there are. So 19 plus 11 plus 12, when you add them all up, it's 42. And then we're going to take 42 divided by 3 because there were 3 numbers in our data set. 42 divided by 3 is 14. For the median, it's important to put them in order first. So you have to have 11 followed by 12 followed by 19. And then you're just looking at the middle. Well, I carefully cross out both sides. I have 1 crossed off on both sides, leaving me 12 in the middle. So 12 is the median. Mode's the one that shows up the most often. There is no mode in this data set. And range is the difference between. So we have the largest minus the smallest number. And the range is 8. So there's a range of 8 numbers in that data set. Okay, so you try it, find the 4 measures of central tendency. Pause the video and do this on your handout. For the mean, you add then divide for the mean. So add it, we get 69 divided by 3, 23. For the median, remember to put them in order first. Then we cross off the same amount from both ends, leaving us with 23 in the middle for the median. Mode is the one that shows up the most, and there is no mode, so we write no mode. And range is the difference between. So we subtract 26 minus 20, and our range is 6. So just to go over it one more time, I'll do this one. Here, to find the mean, we add then divide for the mean. The sum is 52, divided by 4, because there's 4 in the data, is 13. This one's a little bit different than the last one because we have 4 numbers. So when we cross off from both ends, we end up with 2 in the middle. So we need to find the average of those 2. So we add the 2 up and we get 25. And then we're going to divide by 2 because there were 2 numbers this time we added, so it's 12.5 or 12.5. And again, for the mode, none of them show up more than once, so there's no mode. Range, the difference between. So 16 minus 8 is 11. Pause the video and find the mean, median, mode, and range. So you add then divide for the mean. So the sum of all the 4 is 48, divided by 4 of them, because there were 4 in the data set, is 12. always check to make sure that 12 or whatever answer makes sense. It has to be somewhere in the numbers, in the range of numbers, and it's usually close to where most of the numbers are at. So 12 does look like it makes sense. So for your median, you line them all up from smallest to biggest, cross off until you find the middle. There's 2 in the middle, so the middle of them. You can just think about what's halfway between 12 and 13, 12 and a half. The mode's the one that shows up the most, and there are no modes. None of them show up more than once. And the range is the difference between. So 16 subtract 7 is 9. So in the ones that we've had, there were no modes, just like this one down here. Nothing appears the most often. They all tie at showing up once. So we would say that there's no mode. But in our first set of data here, I see a 4 shows up once here and then twice here. We have an 8 showing up once here and then another time here. And then the other ones show up only once. So 4 and 8 tie for showing up the most often. So the modes would be 4 and 8. So there's something out there that can really mess up statistics and really throw off the average and make people think something is right even though it's not. It just kind of messes with it, and that's an outlier. So for example, first of all, an outlier is something that's a lot smaller or larger than all the other data in the list. So let's say you have a room with a bunch of 12, 13, 14-year-olds, and in walks someone who is 80 years old. That 80-year-old is, when you average the ages, it's going to really mess up the average. It's going to pull it way high. So mainly we think of the outlier as really messing up the mean or the average. And so here we've got all these small numbers, and we've got a really large one out here, 153. And that's going to really pull the average way higher and make it seem like the data set has a bunch of bigger numbers than they really do. And range would be another one that gets messed up, because obviously if you're going to subtract 153 and 2, it's going to be way different than if we didn't have that number in the list at all. So the outlier really can affect some of our central tendencies. Okay, so find the outlier if there is one. Well, most of these numbers seem small. Wait, 45 is way different than the other ones. And this is going to be really bad for the average. When you try to add it all up and divide by how many, it's going to pull that average or mean up. So if you do find out that there's an outlier in the list, you probably don't want to use the mean. But it would be a good idea, a fair choice, if you use the median or the mode, because those are not going to change very much. Okay, so how about this data? Decide whether the outlier is going to pull the mean up or down if there is an outlier. Did you find it? Yep, there's 5. So it's way, way smaller than the other data in the list, which means that when you average it in, you add then divide by how many there are, the mean, it's going to really pull down the average.